Homage to the root teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. The supreme Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, please generate the supreme bodhicitta. Now let's continue our study of the preliminary practices. These preliminary practices are something every practitioner must take seriously. Without a solid foundation in the preliminaries, it is hard to practice any of the main practices well. On the surface, these teachings are easy to understand, but their real meaning has to be brought into our own mind stream and put into actual practice. When we practice this way, the whole sequence of the path stays in order. What is more, this is the method that cuts through the afflictions in our mind stream, and it is the most effective and most powerful way to do it. And yet, in this present age of degeneration, many people do not follow the proper sequence, nor do they follow what the lineage masters ask of them. In the course of their practice, they run into obstacles, or their practice brings no visible results. In the end, they develop wrong views toward the Dharma and the teacher, give up halfway, and lose their faith. We see this everywhere in the world today. So, for any one of us, genuinely seeking the path of liberation is no easy thing. And at such a point, we have to follow the pith instructions of the great lineage masters and the order they have laid out for us. This is extremely important. We spoke about it yesterday as well. In our study and practice now, we should keep contemplating the four metaphors. Above all, seeing the teacher as a skilled doctor and seeing ourselves as patients. This point matters a great deal. The only way the teacher can bring you to liberation is by teaching you the Dharma. And the disciple, for their part, has to take what the teacher teaches and put it into practice. Only then can liberation come. It is like a patient. There is no cure without taking the medicine, and no cure without relying on the doctor. But just relying on the doctor, without taking the medicine yourself, will not bring recovery either. And if the doctor prescribes nothing, then, however skilled he may be, he cannot cure the patient's illness. So we need to understand this analogy and how the two sides depend on each other. Otherwise, we fall into error. Some people today go to an extreme here, saying they have no need of a teacher and can master all phenomena through their own intelligence. This too is very hard to do. In all of human history, apart from a rare few of the sharpest faculties, ordinary beings simply cannot manage it. Others go to the opposite extreme. They place all their hope on the teacher, handing everything over to him while being unwilling to practice themselves. But no matter how great an adept the teacher is, no matter how deeply realized, the realization in his own mind stream cannot simply be transferred into someone else's mind. This too is very hard. As I said a moment ago, if realization could actually be transferred, then consider this. All the Buddhas of the 3 times hold inconceivable love and compassion in their mind streams. Set the Buddhas aside. Even Avalokiteshvara's compassion alone is overwhelmingly strong. If he could truly remove every being's inner sickness and suffering, then Avalokiteshvara would surely pour out all his compassion to rescue us. And yet, whether it is Avalokiteshvara or Buddha Shakyamuni, countless beings around them still fall into the lower realms. This is something we come to understand only through study. It is not the way people with wrong views imagine. On one side, they think the teacher alone must save us, that he is all-powerful and everything depends on him while I make no effort at all. On the other side, they think the teacher has no ability, no power, no compassion whatsoever. Neither is true. The point is best understood through the way doctor and patient depend on each other. Most people will not fall into either extreme. If you take no medicine at all and rely entirely on the doctor, is it possible for your illness to be fully cured? Any ordinary person with a little medical knowledge understands that it does not work that way and would not do such a thing. So these extreme mistaken claims have to be stopped. And in our own hearts, we should be clear about this reasoning. If you're not clear about it, then in the actual course of your practice, you will go to one extreme or the other. Either you want to reach the fruit of awakening on your own without relying on a teacher at all, which is quite hard, or you rely on the teacher completely while doing nothing yourself. This second tendency is fairly serious in Tibetan Buddhism. Many people of so-called faith think, my teacher is a truly remarkable, great tulku, a recognized reincarnate master, so whatever negative deeds I commit now will surely not matter, since my teacher has promised me. And some teachers, who on the surface are not deeply versed in the scriptures and treatises, will even promise certain disciples, do not worry, as long as you think of me when you are dying, I will come to receive you. I will come to help you. Whatever negative deeds you have done, none of it will be a problem. Frankly, this does not hold up to reason. So later on, when the chance comes for us to take on disciples ourselves, we cannot think that our word is law and whatever we decide simply goes. That is not how it works. Think of a real criminal who has genuinely broken the law. In our world, no leader can rescue such a person, even when it is a relative of a high official, someone the official would very much like to save. Once that relative has seriously broken the law, in the end, there is nothing to be done, and they must face the judgment of the law. The law of cause and effect in this world is something no one has the power to override. And so, in our ordinary lives, when we rely on a teacher and receive his teachings, we need to understand the reasoning behind them. As I said before, we have to know where the dividing line falls. The boundary between samsara and nirvana must be drawn clearly. Otherwise, we end up like those who claim that everything can be handled in the bardo, or that we can rely entirely on others to rescue us. That, too, is quite hard to count on. On the contrary, these days there are many ritual masters who go to the bedside of the dead and recite, the key to going up or down is like steering a horse by its reins. But the truth is that, when that time comes, apart from great masters who practice the path in former lives, most of the departed are driven from behind by the wild wind of karma. Ahead of them, a grim and terrifying darkness rises up to meet them, and so they are forced into the long, narrow, perilous road of the bardo, with the unfathomable henchmen of Yama at their heels, shouting, "Beat them! Kill them!" in relentless pursuit. The text states it clearly here. Our real hope, the one genuine chance for liberation, lies in this time while we are alive, relying on a spiritual friend, receiving the pith instructions, and putting them into practice ourselves. This is the only true way to liberation. Otherwise, consider Patrul Rinpoche's day. In Tibet at that time, there were a great many ritual masters, as everyone knows, and most of them were highly skilled in recitation. As for inner realization, though, some of them had it and some did not. These ritual masters would often go to people's homes to perform deliverance rituals for the dead, reciting the Bardo Thodol, reciting the aspiration for rebirth in Sukhavati, keeping up the recitations through the full 49 days, and giving blessings to the living through practices such as the Great Longevity practice. Ritual masters like these were, generally speaking, fairly common in Tibet. Some had a higher degree of realization, though not necessarily gained through study, contemplation, and meditation. There were all kinds of cases. After someone had died, these ritual masters would often come and sit by the bedside. Many monastics lined up together and recite the Bardo Thodol liturgy for the deceased. Within that liturgy, there is a passage that goes, "The key to going up or down is like steering a horse by its reins." What this verse actually means is this. When a person has just died and the Bardo Thodol is recited for them over the 49 days, the recitation addresses the dead person directly. You have now entered the Bardo. From here you may go up or go down. To go up is to take rebirth in a pure land or in the higher realms. To go down is to fall into the 3 lower realms. At this crucial juncture, It is like a horse with a bridle in its mouth. Wherever the rider wishes to go, a single pull on the reins turns the horse's head, and it moves toward his goal. The point is this: you who have died must listen closely now, for this is the most critical moment when everything turns on, whether you go up or down. The ritual masters keep stressing this. But the author says the truly critical moment, as we discussed yesterday, is now, while we are alive. Now that we have gained a human body and have the teacher's pith instructions. Even listening to a single teaching plants roots of virtue in your mind stream, and their power is immense. By contrast, in the bardo, apart from a rare few eminent masters who practice the path in former lives, gaining a higher rebirth is, generally speaking, difficult. In the past, both Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu and Patrul Rinpoche said, in various teachings, that once the bardo arrives, for people like us, it is hard to be carried across through simple recitation alone. This is why the time while we are alive matters so much. They said it again and again. Some eminent masters of earlier generations, remarkable practitioners, did not attain liberation when they first reached the bardo of Dharmata, but later, in the bardo of becoming, some teacher would begin, right at their ear, to give the pointing out instruction on the nature of mind, or a teacher might say into their ear, do not enter a womb now, and if you must take rebirth, visualize your own consciousness as the syllable hum or the syllable shi, and so on, giving them such direct pointing out, one instruction after another. As this was done, certain great masters with karmic links from former lives, prompted by their teacher or a dharma friend, would at once, if they were about to enter a womb, visualize themselves as the syllable hum or shi, or if they wished to go to a pure realm, they would immediately visualize their consciousness as the syllable shi and travel to Sukhavati, and so on. Such cases do occur. It is the same with some great masters, and in many tantric practice methods, when the outer breath has stopped but the inner breath has not, or even after the inner breath has ceased, there is still a window across the 49 days. If the dead person receives pointing out instruction each day during this time, transference becomes possible, and even those with rather heavy karma, just as they are heading down to the lower realms, can, through a teacher's forceful fawa, the practice of transferring consciousness at the moment of death, be turned toward the higher realms or even liberation. Such an opportunity does exist for a rare few with the right karmic connection. But for most of the dead, that moment holds real difficulty. Why? Because they have already left this world, and while alive they did not practice virtue. At that point, all the karma of their past lives, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and the rest, comes due, and the wind of that karma begins to chase them and drive them onward, and ahead of them loom terrifying visions of the life to come, glimpses of their next existence already taking shape. Say a person is to be reborn as a hungry ghost. The dreadful sounds and forms of that realm start to appear right before the eyes. So all manner of dark and terrifying apparitions, anguished cries and the like, rise up to meet you. And you enter the long road of the bardo utterly alone, with nothing and no one to lean on. It is a pitiful state. Every one of us, once we leave this world, must pass through this bardo stage. What is more, if you were someone who killed and committed grave misdeeds, then ox-headed and horse-headed henchmen of Yama begin to appear, weapons of every kind in their hands, lunging to stab and cut you down, with terrifying noises. Kill them, beat them, and shrieks of every kind. They threaten you, attack you, torment you. This is why some great masters said in their teachings that when a person who has done misdeeds is about to die, all the sufferings of hell rise up before them. As you draw your last breath, the torments of hell begin to appear in front of you. At such a moment, a being can only be described this way. You long to flee, but there is nowhere to flee. You long to hide, but there is nowhere to hide. You search for shelter, for someone to escort you, for any being to protect you, and you find no one. You are left utterly forlorn, lost, beyond all rescue, helpless, not knowing what to do or which way to turn, alone, like a single leaf tossed on the wind. In that hellish state, they feel the pain of being torn from every friend and loved one. So, for instance, on the day someone in the family dies, many of the living wonder to themselves, where is the dead person's consciousness drifting now? And indeed, the departed does go through a stretch of experience in the bardo. At that point, many ritual masters recite to them that the key to going up or down lies in this recitation. But the truth is that at that point, it is genuinely very hard. So how could that be the key moment for going up or down? As we just said, nowhere to flee, nowhere to dodge, nowhere to hide, no one to lean on. In a moment as helpless and disoriented as that, how could it be the decisive moment for rising or falling? Here we should understand that at that time. Even though the Bardo teachings do contain such a statement, does that mean the Bardo teachings are wrong? Not at all. For certain beings, recitation done in this way does carry blessing and does help. After such pointing out, some do attain liberation, but for most people, the time while alive matters more, and this is something we all need to grasp. Some people are fond of saying, I may not be able to practice virtue right now, but when I die, I hope you will give me a really good deliverance ritual. Some Dharma friends' parents say just this to their children. If the child has become a monastic, the parents pin great hopes on them. You are a monastic. When I die, you must do a good deliverance for me. You follow the Buddha. When I die, just recite the Buddha's name for me, and that will be enough. Of course, reciting the Buddha's name in this way is not without merit. There is merit in it, merit for the one who recites. But the crucial thing is to practice virtue yourself now, while you are still alive. This is something no one can snatch or steal away, and through it you come to possess a most precious root of virtue. Some time ago I went back to my hometown, where we had set up a community of Tibetan lay practitioners, a little over 100 people. I quoted this teaching to them as well, and told them, you are old now. In most household matters you no longer have much say. But now, while you are still alive, in other words, now that your life has reached its final stretch, if at this point you do not study and practice the Dharma well, then when you die, your family will recite for you for 49 days and then carry your body to the charnel ground or the funeral home. They have certainly made an effort, reciting on your behalf. It is useful and there is merit in it. But that merit comes nowhere near what you can accomplish through your own practice right now. Even the merit of sitting through one teaching a day, or doing your own prostrations, reciting the Buddha's name, offering lamps, the roots of virtue you create with your own hands far outweigh all the rest. So the point here is also this: do not load all your hope onto the teacher, and do not expect him to be everything, an all-powerful being on whom you can rely for anything while doing nothing yourself. That way of thinking is simply wrong. In some remote places, people do not understand Buddhism well, and so they imagine they can commit any kind of evil, and that when the time comes, the teacher will recite something, perform a deliverance, and everything will be settled. But it is not so easy. It is like a person in the world. Far better not to break the law in the first place. If you do break it, the best thing is to set it right yourself. Once you're in prison, having others pull strings to get you out is no simple matter. And so, once we have entered the long road of the bardo, the delusion at that point is overwhelming, and turning back is, generally speaking, quite hard. This is why Padmasambhava himself once said, by the time empowerment is conferred upon the spirit tablet, it is already too late. The consciousness wanders the bardo like a witless dog, and for such a one it is hard to call the higher realms to mind. Let me explain. After a person dies, in Tibet there is, as a rule, a spirit tablet. I have spoken of it before. Whatever the household, it is used throughout the 49 days of recitation, once someone has died before the body is dealt with. Teachers and monks are invited to recite, and they perform the deliverance right at the bedside of the body. When the time comes to deal with the body, they draw an image of the person and make it into a spirit tablet. The idea is that the person's consciousness can be summoned onto the picture. Nowadays, a photograph is sometimes used instead. I should have brought one today. I'm sure I have one back home. It is a drawing on a sheet of paper. If the deceased was a man, for example, they draw a male figure, shown with palms joined beneath a parasol, seated in a formal posture, an image of that kind. If the deceased was a woman, they draw a female figure. Then on the tablet they add a little simple decoration, such as a parasol and flower garlands. In particular, the deceased person's own mala and ornaments from life. In Tibet, that usually means coral, a mala, and the like, especially the ornaments the person most treasured and was most attached to in life, may be placed on it. Throughout the 49 days, the monks recite the Bardo Todol for them, and within the Bardo Todol, some empowerment is conferred each day. They summon the consciousness onto the spirit tablet and confer empowerment and pointing out upon it. This is common practice, and many of Padmasambhava's termas, his hidden treasure teachings, call for it as well. For most people in Tibet, in Tibetan Buddhism, once someone has died, if conditions allow, the Bardo Thodol is recited without interruption through the 49 days. If conditions do not quite allow it, then at the very least it is recited for the deceased through 1 or 2 weeks. When the recitations are finished, the spirit tablet, which, as I said, carries some precious pearls and jewels, is handed over, all of it, to the teacher in whom the deceased had the greatest faith for him to deal with. As you well know, in the case of our precious Guru Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, the spirit tablets of the dead from every part of Tibet were brought to him. He would usually wait until the 30th or the 15th of the month, have the Sangha recite, and deal with them all at once, thousands upon thousands of them, an enormous number. In truth, for many of the dead, liberation does come through the teacher's blessing and the monk's recitation. This happens often. Here, though, in order to stress how vital our practice while alive is, Padmasambhava said that at that point, the consciousness of most of the dead drifts through the bardo like a starving dog. So however much empowerment you confer upon the spirit tablet, it is like a starving dog that has long since run off. Call as you may, you cannot call it back. At that point, it may do little for the deceased. To summon the higher realms to mind, then, to reach a pure realm, is genuinely difficult. He quoted this verse, but his main point in quoting it is that while we are alive, the merit of remembrance, of recognizing the Bardo teachings, carries tremendous power. There is a story quite well known in Tibet. Once, there was a wealthy man, and nearby lived an old woman who was on good terms with the wealthy family. In time, the husband died, and his wife was stricken with grief. Afterwards, she told the old woman what had happened. Now, this old woman had studied Buddhism before and practiced virtue, but with certain tantric mandalas and certain deity images she was not very familiar, since she came, after all, from a fairly remote place. Wanting to comfort the wealthy widow, the old woman went to her home to help with a few things and to make some food offerings. During this time, they were reciting for the deceased over the 49 days. As many of you probably know, when the Bardo Thodol is recited, a thangka, a traditional painted scroll of the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, is hung in the shrine room. So the Sangha began to recite the Bardo Thodol, and the old woman caught sight of that thangka of the peaceful and wrathful deities. Having never seen one before, she gazed at it with a look of utter wonder, a lama was there, and she asked him about it. The lama told her, "This is the mandala of the peaceful and wrathful deities." She asked why it was hung there, and the lama replied, "As a rule, after death many people experience these appearances, and when they do, one must recognize them as the deities." At the time, the old woman was rather full of doubt and skepticism, and she wondered to herself, how strange. Why would such forms appear after a person dies? She did not quite accept it, yet a little faith stirred in her as well, and there the matter rested. 3 years later, the old woman too passed away. After she died, her son and daughter were heartbroken and began reciting for their mother over the 49 days. Once the recitations were done, the spirit tablet I mentioned earlier had to be taken, as is required, to a famous teacher. From far away they carried her spirit tablet, along with some gold, silver, and treasures, and a mala, all of it hung on the tablet, and set off for Lhasa to find the Karmapa. Which incarnation of the Karmapa it was, I have forgotten, when the son went looking for him. The Karmapa was famous at the time and received so many visitors that for 2 or 3 days he could not get an audience at all. He kept waiting, and then one day he managed to arrange a time. When he arrived, the Karmapa was sitting out in the courtyard, on what seemed to be a low stool, and there the young man made his plea. He offered his mother's possessions to the Karmapa and the spirit tablet as well, and pleaded, "Master, you must bring my mother to liberation. You must promise me this." At first the Karmapa said, "I cannot promise that. Beings are carried along by their own karma. This is not within my power." The young man wept on and said, "Then can you at least tell me where exactly my mother has been reborn?" The Karmapa said, "I do not know that either. I have no clairvoyance at present. Where she has been reborn, I do not know." The young man kept pleading, "You must promise me. Do not let her fall. She must take rebirth in a pure realm." On and on like this. At first the Karmapa would not agree, but the young man clearly felt deeply for his mother. Some people do hand all their dead over to the teacher and ask him to carry them across. This is common in Tibet. On one hand, they feel deeply for the deceased, and on the other, they have great faith in the teacher, so they insist on a promise. In the end, the young man threw his arms around the Karmapa's feet and said, "Will you promise or not? If you will not, I will not let you go." And he simply held on. Then the Karmapa rested briefly in meditation and said, "There is no need for me to carry her across. Your mother has already attained liberation." For a moment, the young man did not believe it. "Is it because I am holding on to you that you have started to deceive me? Are you telling the truth or not?" The Karmapa replied, "I have looked with my wisdom, and your mother reached a pure realm long ago. About 3 years ago, in your area, a wealthy man died. At that time, your mother saw the peaceful and wrathful deities within a Buddha's mandala, because a certain monastic took the trouble to explain the matter to her. Through that connection, she came to recognize the faces of the deities, and so she was liberated. If you do not believe me, you can go home and ask about it." The young man was overjoyed. After he returned, he made careful inquiries and eventually met that very monk, who confirmed it. "At the time, your mother understood nothing, and I explained to her, these are the peaceful and wrathful deities." So through this connection, the young man too developed great faith in the Vajrayana. A story like this is, you could say, known in every household in Tibet. For many of us, if we are able to practice the Bardo teachings, as was discussed last year, then in the Bardo of dying, we will indeed recognize what arises. And if that proves impossible, there are still cases where, in the next life, one meets the profound Vajrayana and is liberated. Some, with the roots and the right connections, have come to recognize the peaceful and wrathful deities during their lifetime. For them, there is no falling in the bardo. They win liberation. This is a true account, not some ordinary legend. It has many historical sources, with the full story told in detail. So, Dharma friends here, when you come upon images of, say, the peaceful and wrathful deities, look at them clearly and carefully, so that when the day of your own death comes and such appearances arise, you will be ready. Of course, capacities differ from person to person. For some, what appears is exactly what we now see in the images. The union forms, the wrathful forms, the peaceful forms all appear before them. For others, what appears has only some resemblance to the deities and does not show up exactly as depicted. At that moment, as I have said before, recognize them. Oh, these are the peaceful and wrathful deities. Do not be afraid. Do not take them for anything else, for some kind of animal. Otherwise, if we fail to recognize them, they turn at once into terrifying visions of the gods of hell, and this is nothing but a transformation of our own mind. Now, many people hold prejudices against the Vajrayana, and if the prejudice is there, little can be done. Even in the Buddha's own day, it was not only the Vajrayana that drew many with wrong views. Those who held wrong views about the Sutrayana were also beyond counting. We cannot stop every one of them. But those who do have a connection with both the Vajrayana and the Sutrayana should not reject everything out of hand. The moment they see a union image, they think, what could this possibly be for? You must never think that way. Within such images lie many profound secrets. The physical eye of an ordinary being is not at all what you imagine. To project your own desire, hatred, and ignorance onto the thangka is simply not possible. Buddhism is not so foolish as that. So there is a very profound dependent origination within these images. Even if you do not understand all that, simply seeing them, the peaceful and wrathful deities, or an image of Amitabha, while we are still alive is genuinely important. After all, that old woman had received no empowerment and had done no formal systematic practice. She had no idea at all what it was, and she even thought, how strange. How could such forms appear when a person dies? Doubts like that arose in her. Yet later, through other conditions, she was liberated by means of those sacred images. So, generally speaking, the bardo holds all sorts of appearances. But what we are stressing here is that the most crucial moment is right now, while we are alive. Just as a horse's course follows the reins, the decisive moment for rising or falling is this present life. The power of the upward, virtuous deeds we can perform with this human body of ours far outstrips that of the other 5 realms. In other words, in this very life we can abandon the crown of the skull for good. We can cast off rebirth once and for all. Now that we have gained a human body, this is a critical time, the most decisive moment for rising or falling. If in this very life we practice virtue, generate bodhicitta, take ordination, or practice the Vajrayana, the power of such virtuous deeds and merit far surpasses anything possible in the other 5 realms, the hells, the hungry ghosts, the animal, the asuras, and the gods. There is simply no comparison. And so, in the past, some great masters of the Kadampa, through a lifetime of diligent effort, finally reached the level of Vajradhara. Among us in the Nyingma, many practitioners, renunciants who set worldly affairs aside, likewise reached a pure realm through a whole life of effort. In the Chan and Pure Land schools of Chinese Buddhism too, a good number who were once plain, thoroughly ordinary worldly people, later, through faith in the teacher and in the Dharma, set aside all their tangled worldly concerns, poured all their energy into the Dharma, practiced with diligence, and at the moment of death were completely liberated. They abandoned the crown of the skull once and for all. To abandon the crown of the skull forever is a saying common in Tibetan Buddhism, one people use all the time. For the crown of the skull is what a person leaves behind at death. Not only humans, but yaks and other beings too leave their skeletons behind when they die. But if we are not liberated in this life, we may have to cast off the crown of our skull countless times more. This life I am a human and leave my skull behind at death. The next life a yak. The life after that a starving dog. And so on, turning endlessly through samsara, my bones thrown away in this world an untold number of times. But if in this life I practice diligently according to the teacher's instructions, then this life will be the last time I cast off the crown of my skull. From then on, I will no longer be driven by karma and affliction to wander through the world. I will never have to cast it off again. So in this life, we should aim to renounce samsara for good, to be done forever with the skull of birth and death. That is what we should accomplish. In the same way, this human body's capacity to pile up downward negative karma also far exceeds that of beings in the other realms. To put it another way, this very life can become the very thing that seals our fall into the abyss of the lower realms. Seen from this opposite angle, the negative karma committed with a human body can far outweigh the karmic deeds of the hells, the animals, or the hungry ghosts. Why is that? Because human beings can be clever. The wrong views that arise in a person's mind, the karma of cursing others aloud or slandering the three jewels, an ordinary yak or a hell being could not manage these, because the human mind holds a certain potent but misguided cunning. With this so-called wisdom, slandering the teacher, or denying cause and effect, you can pile up such karma in no time at all. Especially now, in this age of rapid scientific advance, a person with wrong views can build nuclear weapons, can build atomic bombs, and in an instant, by such an act, send thousands upon thousands of beings to their deaths. Even making a single explosive can blow away any number of lives. So this human capacity is truly frightening. As for those who do not follow the Buddha now, and at times this may include some Dharma friends here, back when we did not follow him, the karma they created may far exceed that of a yak grazing on the mountainside. The yak is quite dull-witted. Greed and anger are there in its mind, yet deliberately killing others, deliberately making weapons, deliberately devouring many beings. Such deeds are beyond it. So if we do not turn our lives around in this life, we may create the very causes that will keep us from ever being liberated from samsara. Fortunately, we have now met an excellent spiritual friend, one like a skilled doctor, and we have received the sublime Dharma, a nectar like the elixir that brings the dead back to life. Now is the time to rely on the four true metaphors just described, to practice the Dharma we have heard, and to enter the path of liberation. So, as we said before, through the analysis above, we should hold this in our hearts. How fortunate we are to have met such a qualified, excellent spiritual friend, one who is like a skilled doctor. I myself think of this often. Among so many causes and conditions, I met my guru, our precious guru, Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, something I have reflected on all my life, and not as mere words, but truly in my heart. I think, had I not met such a teacher, I would be living as my old schoolmates and former companions now live, with their views and their conduct. When I see all this clearly, many new feelings stir in me, feelings quite unlike before. Now that we have met an excellent teacher and received, as already described, the wondrous Dharma nectar that liberates from samsara, we should take up the four metaphors taught above. Think of ourselves as patients and of the teacher as a skilled doctor, not in words, but in actual practice, contemplating this again and again. If we contemplate in this way, the blessing and power of the Dharma will, little by little, merge into our own mind stream. In fact, for those who follow the Buddha, supplicating the Guru and the three jewels often is very important. Through supplication, the response of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and their blessing merges into our hearts. Studying the Dharma is not like studying worldly knowledge, where you learn one thing, grasp it, and that is that. Take physics, for instance, and the theories that Einstein worked out. Once we understand them, that is enough. But in the Dharma, there is the blessing of the lineage masters, the blessing of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, gained little by little through our own faith and reverence. This kind of attainment is nothing like worldly knowledge. When such blessing and wisdom merge into one within us, the resonance and the power are extraordinarily strong, and they guide us onto the path of liberation and hold us back from every wrongdoing. So, on our path of study and practice, I hope we will supplicate the Guru and the Three Jewels often. When we rise in the morning, supplicate them. When we lie down at night, supplicate the Guru and the Three Jewels. And even while walking or pausing for a brief rest, call the Guru and the Three Jewels to mind in our hearts. Keep all your conduct, walking, standing, sitting, lying down, always within the wisdom and light of the teacher's blessing, never apart from it. Many eminent masters and practitioners of the past lived just so, on the surface, even while admiring flowers in a garden. They would not simply think, "What lovely flowers, how nice." That is not necessarily how they saw it. Instead, they might think, "These beautiful flowers, let me offer them to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That I can even see them is itself the teacher's blessing." Whether the experience is pleasant or unpleasant, they see it all as inseparable from the teacher's blessing. Take a genuine practitioner who falls ill and is racked with excruciating pain. At that moment, they do not think, "How unlucky I am. What a failure. Struck down out of nowhere by such a terrible illness." That is not how they think. Instead, how inconceivable the blessing of the Guru and the Three Jewels. Even this illness today is a chance to clear away the karmic obscurations I have carried since beginningless time. Through this chance, the misdeeds in my mind stream are purified one by one. Whether they meet with happy circumstances or painful adversity, whatever the setting or the hour, they pass through it all within the blessing and wisdom of the teacher. This is the conduct of a superior practitioner. They never see it as, "Oh, the teacher's blessing has deserted me completely. The Dharma's blessing is gone today. How is it I am getting no blessing at all? How unlucky, how miserable. Look, I have supplicated so many times, and still I fall ill." Some lay practitioners say just this to me, and it sounds quite pitiful. "I have studied the Dharma so long, offered so many lamps, freed so many lives, built up so much merit, and yet here I am, with a cold today. How unlucky I am. Now I have lost all my faith in the Dharma." Of course, such people have a shallow view of the Dharma, so they have no idea by what means the teacher's blessing actually enters their own wisdom. We, therefore, should think in this way. As we practice through the four metaphors above, we should also cut off their opposite, the four mistaken metaphors. The four metaphors we discussed earlier are to be relied on always. What we must cut off are the four mistaken metaphors. As the Treasury of Precious Qualities says, those of corrupt nature, whose deceit is like a snare, draw near the teacher as a hunter stalks the musk deer. Once they have taken the true Dharma, the musk they sought, they revel in the hunt and cast their samaya away. This sets out the four mistaken metaphors. As we said before, in the course of relying on a teacher, we should regard the teacher as a skilled doctor. The four mistaken metaphors that Jigme Lingpa sets out in the Treasury of Precious Qualities are the reverse of this. Taking oneself for the hunter, the teacher for the musk deer, the Dharma for the musk, and diligent practice for the hunt itself. Do behaviors that match this actually appear today? They certainly do, as everyone has noticed. Take a greedy hunter. By one means or another, he first traps the musk deer, kills it, and takes the musk. then he sells the musk and grows rich. His desire and his aim are exactly that. In the same way, some people in the world today first attach themselves to a teacher by cunning means. If the teacher is fond of wealth, they heap money on him. If he cares for fame, they use every kind of flattery to praise his name, or they please him by other means. Whatever it takes, their aim is to get hold of every essential teaching in his mind stream, empowerments, instructions, pith teachings, all of it. Until they have it, they stay close, attending him, never leaving his side for years. Once they have drawn out the Dharma in the teacher's mind stream, and the teacher, thinking, here is a fine and worthy disciple, has passed on to them all his teachings and lineage. Once the transmission is complete, they never give a thought to the teacher's kindness. Ordinary people, as a rule, feel gratitude even toward a teacher of worldly learning. But in this degenerate age, people with a deeply corrupt heart give no thought at all to the teacher's kindness, and if his name so much as comes up, they fear it might reflect on them. Some people are exactly like this. They will not even say which teacher they received which teaching from. Instead, they boast that they invented this, that they figured that out on their own, and they begin to sell the Dharma like musk, peddling it everywhere. Of course, because they feel no gratitude toward the teacher. The Dharma may bring others some slight benefit for a while, but in the end it helps neither themselves nor anyone else. So, as we rely on a teacher in the future, we must be careful of conduct like this. The text puts it through a metaphor. The methods of a disciple of corrupt character are like a snare. In ancient times, how did hunters trap their prey? First they would dig a pit, set a rope snare inside it, and tie the other end of the rope to a springy wooden stake. Then they would spread grass or leaves over the top to hide the snare beneath. When a musk deer wandered in and stepped on it, the spring of the stake would snap upward, the rope would cinch tight, and the deer was caught. Once it was caught, the hunter, overjoyed and without a second thought, would kill it on the spot, for his one purpose all along was to obtain the musk. So now, many corrupt disciples in the world rely on a teacher not in order to receive the sublime Dharma, and not out of gratitude to him. None of that. They want to make a name for themselves, to make money through the Dharma, to chase the 8 worldly concerns, and by every kind of means they deceive the teacher. This is extremely common, and so the text says, never, ever take up the hunter's 4 attitudes and so betray your samaya. If you do, then, as certain Vajrayana treatises explain, to defy the teacher's word, to abandon the teacher, to deceive the teacher, brings a terrible result, both for yourself and for others. You may wander life after life in the hells, unable to win liberation. So here, too, the 4 mistaken metaphors have been laid out. The 4 mistaken metaphors named here are these: seeing the teacher as the musk deer, the true Dharma as the musk, oneself as the hunter, and diligent practice as the arrow, the trap, and the other means of killing the deer. So, as we rely on a teacher now, we should do so properly and sincerely, with reverence and a pure heart. Supplicate the teacher and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas often, so that the blessings in their mind streams merge into you. If you truly regard yourself as a patient, then the teacher's Dharma, which is like medicine, will do you good. But if you rely on a teacher only out of a passing greed to collect teachings, and many are like this nowadays, going to a teacher for no other reason than to get this or that teaching from him, then once they have got the teaching, they pay him no further heed, never so much as glancing back. They will not even mention which teacher they once received teachings from, and if they do speak of it at all, the tone is dismissive. So toward any teacher from whom we have received even a single line of the Dharma, we should feel gratitude and never forget them as long as we live. Even in the world, when an ordinary teacher imparts knowledge to you, a wise person, one who is truly devoted to parents and respectful of teachers, will not forget it. How much greater, then, are the value and benefit of the Dharma. So if you hold such reverence for the Dharma and for the teacher, the Dharma will have the power to bless your mind stream. But if you feel no gratitude for your Dharma connection, then the knowledge in your mind stream becomes mere dry understanding, without much real power. As the text warns, those who seek the Dharma but do not actually practice it, who feel no gratitude for the teacher's kindness, pile up negative karma by means of the Dharma itself and lay the very foundation of the lower realms. That is terrifying. First, after receiving the teachings, do not grow indifferent. Set them aside and never again practice or even look at them. Please do not do this, especially in this study of the words of my perfect teacher. We cover only a little each day. I hope you will read it carefully, in earnest, and contemplate it well. If you do, the inconceivable blessing of the lineage masters will surely be there, and you can become a pure practitioner for the whole of your life, your resolve on the path never wavering. There are many uncommon links and conditions at work in this. At the same time, be grateful to every kind teacher and to every master from whom you have received the gift of the Dharma. Only in this way can blessing come. If instead you do not practice at all, and even develop wrong views, harboring hatred, jealousy, and ill will toward your Vajra friends and toward many others, then by such negative karma you make yourself a cornerstone of samsara. There is no need for that. We turn to the Dharma to reach liberation, not to fall deliberately into ruin. But the Dharma can at times be dangerous, just like taking medicine. With surgery, if the operation goes well, the patient may recover at once. But if it does not, or if you take the wrong medicine, it is dangerous and can cost you your life. In the same way, in our practice we must be careful. We cannot afford not to be. To be careful is, as the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish puts it, what makes one truly wise. So I hope everyone will take all that has been said above and turn it over in your minds again and again. Good, we will stop here for today.
Bandara Padmasambhava Bandara Padmasambhava Bandara Padmasambhava